Hi there, this is Gareth Dyke from Top Edit, and this short presentation is intended to help you, an international academic, understand academic plagiarism, one of the most common issues faced around the world by colleagues writing and publishing their work in English. Most people don't realize what plagiarism is, so we thought we'd put together this short training presentation to help you understand the common forms of academic plagiarism. Plagiarism, of course, is the attribution, the use of somebody else's work, somebody else's text, somebody else's figure, somebody else's data in one of your published pieces of work without citation. But this happens all the time in academic writing and publishing because people are unaware of what the rules are. People are unaware of where the issues are. Here are the three common forms of academic plagiarism that we encounter at Top Edit and that journals encounter in their publishing. Mosaic plagiarism, where data from various sources is mixed together by an author and made to sound original by mistake and sometimes on purpose. Paraphrasing plagiarism, where words are changed, edited, but the idea, the original idea, remains the same and no citation is given. And thirdly, and most confusingly and least well understood by our international colleagues, is the issue of self-plagiarism. Did you know that if you reuse something from your own work in subsequent publications, you have to cite yourself? It is best practice to cite your own previous work thoroughly, even if you're simply revisiting an old idea or a previously published observation. Mosaic plagiarism, paraphrasing plagiarism, and self-plagiarism. So let's address some common, frequently asked questions that we get at Top Edit. Authors ask us, colleagues ask us, let's go through them so that we can understand better this issue. Is it plagiarism if I cite a source? The answer, if you correctly cite a source, you do not commit plagiarism. And this is what journals, international journals, are looking for in particular. However, in order to avoid plagiarism, you must adhere to the guidelines of your citation style in the journal that you're targeting for your publication. And direct quotes from previously published work must always be given 100% accurately. So even if I write something in one of my papers and there's a spelling mistake, you want to use that quote in your subsequent publication, you have to do so with 100% accuracy. Here's another question that we get often asked at Top Edit. Is this plagiarism? You are a member of the audience where research results are being presented. You use ideas described by one of the speakers in the design of your next research project. This is and can be ethically problematic. If you hear ideas at a conference or view results on somebody else's slide, you have to ask their permission to talk about these results in your own work. Cite the conference abstract or cite that colleague as a personal communication. Often people are unaware of this as well. How about this question? Is this plagiarism? You're reviewing a submitted manuscript as a peer reviewer for a journal, and you decide to use novel research methods described in that manuscript to enhance your own research. This is not allowed. This is unethical. It's a breach of trust as a peer reviewer. If you get an article to review for a journal and you see something interesting in there that you'd like to cite, You've got to wait for the paper to be published or appear on a preprint server with a document identity object identifying number DOI so that you can appropriately cite that publication in your own work. How about this one? Is this plagiarism? You're writing a paper in English and your native language is another language, Chinese, let's say. When writing a review of the literature, you use another author's exact words because you're not confident about paraphrasing or synthesizing ideas into your own words in English. This is very common, and this is inadvertent plagiarism. It can happen. And this is why it's so important as a non-native speaker to use a plagiarism checking service before submission. Make sure your work does not contain the inadvertent use of somebody else's text without citation. This can be a problem when submitting to international journals. How about this question? You're doing research using the internet. You choose to use ideas from a website in the design of your next research project, and you also use some quotes from the website in your literature review. Now, more and more research is based, of course, on a variety of sources, not just other peer-reviewed literature. So if you take something off the internet, you need to cite the content, the online source, and note the day on which you accessed this content. Moving on, here's another question that people often ask us. What's the acceptable percentage in a plagiarism report? There's a lack of consensus, generally speaking, or any clear-cut rules on what percentage of plagiarism is acceptable in a manuscript, but we're looking for 10%, below 15%, and an international journal will reject your article out of hand without peer review if that value is higher than, let's say, 25%. So rejection because of plagiarism can lead to problems in your publishing career. Rejection can lead to blacklisting at a publisher. So get your work pre-checked for plagiarism before submission is the key message of this part of this presentation. Here's what a plagiarism check looks like. Here you can see a document that's been checked with one of the many available pieces of software that search text against reference databases to check if there's any overlap, if there's any text that appears here without citation. And you can see the various parts of this document that are highlighted as coming from previous literature. You can see on the right hand side the previous literature, and you can see the report here. It's a 10% plagiarism check, so this is okay. This would pass into the peer review process at an international journal. So we have some tips for you to avoid this issue in your own work. Tips to avoid plagiarism. Number one, understand the context. Don't just copy-paste text verbatim from a reference paper, and understand the ideas of the reference source in advance to paraphrase correctly. We have sources, we have documentation that you can use to look at examples of good, effective paraphrasing, and indeed we can do this for you in our editing services at Top Edit. And don't forget to include quotations. If you take text from another article, quote to indicate that in your own paper. Identify what needs and what does not need to be cited, and the rule of thumb here is that any words or ideas that are not your own should be cited in academic writing, and you have to cite your own material if you're reusing it in subsequent papers. Facts, common knowledge, however, need not be cited. The earth is round, the moon is in the sky, but if you're unsure, the rule here is cite if you have doubt. properly paraphrase, rewording and formatting your work in an original way, and trying to avoid too many similar words or phrases from the source. It's a good idea to properly cite your sources, of course, but you do this by maintaining records of the literature that you used when you're putting together your work, when you're doing literature reviews and so on. And this can be done easily by using citation software, EndNote, Mendeley, Reference Manager, for example. Using multiple references for background information when you survey the literature. And perhaps most importantly of all, get your work checked with a plagiarism checking piece of software before you submit to international journals. The journals will do it anyway, but you want to be sure that there's no issues with your written work. Thank you for listening. My name is Gareth Dyke. This has been a Top Edit special training presentation on the issue of academic plagiarism.